Welcome once again to my YouTube channel, and in succession to the videos what I have been taking up in pharmacology. So today's video I'll be mainly discussing about the sources of drugs. So in pharmacology, for students who are from the nursing, MBBS, BDS, nursing pharmacology, so you are supposed to write in the professional exams. They can be asked about the sources of drugs. For those students, those who want the same video in Hindi, I have already uploaded the Hindi video, and this video I'll be mainly discussing about the sources of drugs in English. So starting with the sources of drugs. So the sources of drugs can be broadly subdivided into the natural sources of the drugs, or the drugs can be manufactured in a semi-synthetic way, or most of the drugs what are now being produced in the present day era, they are synthetic drugs which are artificially manufactured. Artificially made chemical compounds are there which are being used as drugs. So the sources of drugs can be either natural, they can be either semi-synthetic or synthetic. So students and viewers, starting with, so natural sources of drugs are derived from the natural resources such as from plants, they can be derived from animals, there can be derived from certain minerals, certain drugs can be obtained, there can be certain microorganisms which from which the drugs can be obtained. Apart from this, there are semi-synthetic sources as well as the synthetic drugs what are very frequently used now in the present day era. So starting with, I would like to emphasize on one point, that semi-synthetic drugs, what are they? So semi-synthetic drugs are those drugs which are obtained from natural sources and later on they are modified. So at the time of dispensing the drugs, at the time of drug dispensing, these semi-synthetic drugs, the chemical compounds, they are obtained naturally, but later on they are modified whenever they are dispensed in the form of drugs. So the third type, that is the synthetic drugs, I have already said that synthetic drugs are produced artificially, and the different sources of drugs, firstly we'll look at the natural sources. So when we look at the natural sources, the first very important natural source are the plants. So in the plants there are certain alkaloids what are being used, and those alkaloids include the morphine, the atropine, the quinine. The quinine is used as a natural alkaloid which is being obtained from the bark of the cinchona tree. So quinine, which is an anti-malarial agent, anti-malarial drug. So quinine is being obtained from the bark of the cinchona tree. So it is the natural sources plant. Apart from these, reserpine. So reserpine is obtained from the plant Rauwolfia serpentina. In Hindi it is called as sarpagandha. So it's a natural source of an alkaloid which is known as reserpine. And ephedrine. So you must have heard in various cough syrups ephedra. So ephedra is also a plant from which ephedrine is being derived, which is a very famous anti-mucolytic agent. So this ephedrine, the chemical substance which is an alkaloid, is obtained from a natural source of plant from the tree ephedra. The next is important source of the natural plant sources is the glycosides. So among the glycosides we have the very famous glycosides, that is the digoxin as well as the digitoxin. So these are the glycosides which are the plant sources from which the natural sources from which the drugs are being manufactured. So the next sources are animals. From animals, what do we find is that the human present day, in the present era, the insulin what is being used and the heparin, so they are derived from the animal sources. The next are the mineral sources. When we look at the mineral sources, the ferrous sulfate and the magnesium sulfate, which are nowadays being used in the antacids, the ferrous sulfate in the form of iron tablets. So they are obtained from the minerals. So these are the mineral sources from which these drugs are being obtained. Apart from this, there are certain microorganisms as well which give us very valuable drugs. So the microorganisms in this category belongs to the penicillin microorganisms, is very important. important, from which the penicillin drug is being obtained. Apart from this, the streptomycin, the griseofulvin. So these are the microbial sources, microorganisms through which different drugs are being obtained. The next are the semi-synthetic sources. So semi-synthetic are those drugs which are, the chemical compounds are obtained naturally, and later on they are modified. Later on they are modified to at the time of dispensing them. So these are the semi-synthetic ones. So semi-synthetic drugs, they include the hydromorphone and the hydrocodone. So these are semi-synthetic drugs, means their chemicals are obtained naturally and later on they are modified at the time of drug dispensing them in the market by the manufacturing companies. And last but not the least, most of the drugs what are being dispensed nowadays, what are available in the pharmacy nowadays, these are the synthetic drugs, and these, most of the synthetic drugs, they are artificially made. And the best example of today's artificially or the synthetic drugs are the aspirin and the paracetamol. So the aspirin and the paracetamol, these are actually the chemical compounds. Aspirin, which is also known by the chemical name of aspirin, is acetyl salicylic acid, whereas paracetamol, it is the N-acetyl para-aminophenol. So the chemical name of paracetamol is N-acetyl para-aminophenol. So these are the two chemicals from which these most famous drugs, that is the aspirin and the paracetamol, they are the best examples of synthetic drugs. Now, another very important source nowadays to obtain drugs is the recombinant DNA technology. So drugs are also produced nowadays by genetic engineering using the recombinant DNA technology or the rDNA technology. The best examples of the drugs what are obtained using the recombinant DNA technology is the human insulin, the human growth hormone, and the hepatitis B vaccine. So students and viewers, this was a very short discussion where I've discussed in simple terms as to what are the sources from which nowadays different drugs are being obtained. There can be natural sources of the drugs, amongst which we have plants, animals, microorganisms, minerals. These are the natural sources. The next is the semi-synthetic. Semi-synthetic are those drugs which are the chemicals are obtained naturally and later on they are modified. And last, that's the synthetic drugs, which are the chemicals are manufactured artificially and later on they are formulated as drugs and dispensed in the market. So there are synthetic drugs. In this video I have discussed in simple terms about the different sources of the drugs. If still there are any queries and comments of yours, you are most welcome to comment me in the comment section. And those students and viewers who are new to my channel, who haven't subscribed, subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you can be further updated for my upcoming videos. If you like this video, give this video a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.